Celebrate spring with some baking. Making the classic butterfly cakes. So simple, so beautiful. Here I've got some butter. This is homemade butter. It was in the fridge, that's why it looks a bit crumbly. 125 grams of that. You'll need 2 eggs. These were straight from my girls. And half a cup of sugar. This is Rapadura. That's why it looks like brown sugar. Use whatever you've got. Caster sugar, raw sugar, whatever. It'll all be good. 1.5 cups of self-raising flour. And half a cup of milk. I've put the milk in a saucepan because we're going to warm it up, as you'll see in a minute. Now, this ingredient is not in the recipe that I'm using, but I'm going to put it in anyway. This is just some vanilla extract. This is all that you need. And the recipe I'm using is from a CWA cookbook. I will link that in the description below. It's the Country Classics, I believe. Now I'm going to preheat my oven to 180 degrees Celsius, which is about 350 Fahrenheit, I believe. I'm going to line my muffin tins with some patty pans. These were just some leftovers that I had in the cupboard, but they're cute with little spots. So I've got my butter in the bowl now. And as you'll see, here's the milk. It's warmed up until it's just started boiling. I just keep moving it around so that it doesn't start to burn and stick on the bottom. You don't want that. Once the milk is nice and hot, we're going to carefully pour it in over the butter. It will start to really soften the butter and to melt it. Then we're going to go in with the sugar. And this is when I'm adding the vanilla. You could add it now or later. I don't think it will change the result very much. And we're going to whisk it up. And while it's mixing, then we'll add in the eggs. I didn't want to add the eggs in now because I didn't want that warm milk to start cooking the eggs. I didn't want little lumps of egg in the mixture. So I'm just going to get it going, mixing it up first. This is a very beginner-friendly recipe. It's called Small Cake Recipe in the book, and it's just very straightforward, nice for making little cupcakes or little party cakes. It says it makes 48, I think, in the book, but they must have used smaller patty pans than I used because I got 12. I do tend to make things a bit larger. We're just going to mix that until it's all incorporated. Then we're going to slowly put in the flour bit by bit and let it get incorporated. I did not sift this flour. I don't ever sift my flour when I'm baking. But just adding it bit by bit ensures that there's no lumps that are left in it. It just gets all put together. Do you sift your flour if you're baking? Let me know in the comments. I remember my grandma always sifting her flour. She had a sifter that had like a handle on the side and you squeezed it and it like sifted it out through the bottom. Just remember, I think it was like a bright orange Tupperware one. I remember being in her kitchen and her sifting flour for baking with that. Now I'm going to go in with the meanie and make sure that all that flour around the edge of the bowl you can see gets all incorporated. There we go. I just want to make sure that we haven't got any lumps of flour left. That's all incorporated. Then we'll put it in our patty pans. These are going to be some little cakes for an afternoon tea celebration that we're going to have on the spring equinox. equinox means equal night. So it's the day of the year in spring when the daytime hours and the nighttime hours are the same length. And it marks the astronomical first day of spring. So here we go. I've got the prepared patty pans. And I'm going to use my trusty ice cream scoop. This one's a vintage one. It was my husband's grandmother's, and she left it here in the farmhouse. So it was here when I got here. So using that, it's really convenient. This one has probably about a half a cup measure, so it's just really easy to scoop for muffins and cupcakes and things like that. It's good to mark the seasons changing and to notice what's happening in nature and what's happening in ourselves too. We feel the effects of the change of time around us. Now in they go to the oven. And we're going to bake them for... here's all the washing up. That's what happens when you're baking. It's always mess to be done. So I'm going to bake them for 15 minutes, but I will check them after that. They might need 20 minutes because mine are a little bit bigger. So getting on with the dishes. It's a part of life, isn't it? I like to try to make it a game when I'm baking. Try to see how many dishes I can get done before the thing in the oven's ready. This recipe is quite quick, so I had to try to get through it quickly. For our springtime afternoon tea, also I'm going to make a nature hunt for my boys so they can go and see what's happening in the garden and around the farm, see if they can find some different things on the list, and might even do some springtime craft, maybe some watercolors, maybe something else. Look, there we go. Wasn't that quick. Now they're ready. I've let them cool just for a couple of minutes. They're still very hot and I want to get them out and get them cooling on a cooling rack so they don't sweat in the pan. See, nice and golden on top, not too hot, not too brown. So now they just look like ordinary plain little cakes. You could do whatever you like with them. Put some fancy icing on them, or like we're going to do, make them into butterfly cakes. To do that, now our cakes have cooled down. I'm going to get the cream off this milk. Can you see the cream line? So much cream. So I'm going to scoop that off the top and beat it up. So this whipped cream will become the filling of our butterfly cakes. I'm going to add in a dash of vanilla and just a little bit of icing sugar, just for a little bit of sweetness, and then whip it to its stiff peaks. Springtime's such a beautiful time in nature. Everything's turning green and coming alive, waking up. Things that have been asleep all winter are shooting forth leaves and flowers, and everything seems fresh and new. And I'm just reminded that there's a season for everything in its order. We can't have spring all year long, but we can enjoy it while it's here. It's good to make the moments last. Take time to notice what's happening and just really enjoy it. So here we are whipping the cream. We want to whip it till it's fairly stiff, but not until it starts to become butter. We don't want that. So now to cut the cakes, we're going to poke the knife in sort of at a 45-degree angle into the center of the cake while we rotate the cake, and you'll see that will just chop off a little cone shape off the top. And it will leave a bit of a hole inside, which we will fill with the cream. Now you could get fancy and pipe this cream in there. I just use a spoon. Rustic's my style. So there's our cream. Now we're going to chop that lid that we cut off the cupcake in half and put both halves on top of the cream, and they are the little butterfly wings. Ta-da! Isn't it cute? You take a plain cake and make it something special. Now, this is an art activity I did with my boys. It was fun. They loved it. They had a good time. It was also very loud. So if you're going to do this, maybe do it at a time where your neighbours will not be disturbed. I don't have any neighbours close enough to hear us hammering. So you'll need, I use watercolour paper. Something like a thicker paper would be better. Watercolour is perfect because it absorbs the moisture. And hammers. Now we're looking around our garden to see what things we can see. We were looking mainly for flowers, but also we used some different and interesting sort of leaves. We had lots of herbs like parsley and sage. They were good. They made some interesting, well, you'll see here what we're doing with them. So fold your piece of paper in half and then open it back out again. And arrange your nature objects that you've found onto one half of your paper. Now plants with darker pigments work better with this. So like those those dark red pansies turned out quite bright. The little white blossoms did nothing. The rosemary was quite good too. It had good green colour and purple colour. So just take your time and arrange your material. It's good to get lots and lots of things and then gently fold your paper back over the top. And while holding it closed, you're going to get your hammer and you're going to smush all of the things inside. This was a little bit tricky, holding it and hammering it, and you've got to try to hammer every part of the plant. And when you open it up, it's made a print on both sides of your paper. So my boys enjoyed opening it up, and some of them, they thought, oh, there's not many things on here. So they went and they did another round and they got some more nature things to add into their pictures, and then they had another go at it until they were happy with the end result. The pansies worked really well. They were probably the best thing for transferring their colour. Grass, using some grass also worked. One of my boys made a grass border around his picture. There you go. A spring craft to notice what's happening in nature. Making some plant prints. Well, now let's have a special afternoon tea on the spring equinox. So here's our butterfly cakes. I've also made some vanilla malt milkshake there in the big jar. I've got some spring poetry to read. We're going to do some watercolor painting, and I've also got a nature hunt that my boys are going to work together and go and see if they can find those things around. If you would like a copy of that, I will link it in the description below. And one of my boys also picked flowers for our table. Aren't they lovely? Enjoy your spring.